Sixers Nation, Sixer fans, happy, positive, excited Sixer fans. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I am DJ Eastwood, Run It Back Philly. We got RB Philly Take. We got Sean Barnard of Pick Swap Media. We got a lot of things to talk about. And right before we came up here, Sean was like, it's a little bit more on, a lighthearted note or a positive note than the last time we spoke. So that's good. We were in the dark for how many games did Joel miss, dude? 2 months. Oh man, it was bad. It was dark times, man. And he came back last night and shocked all of us. Honestly, I don't know anybody that wasn't shocked. But yeah, thanks for being here. Do us a favor, hit the like button. Subscribe to all these channels if you're not subscribed already. And we'll get down to business, man. We got some things to talk about. RB, what's going on? Sean, what's going on?
Yeah, life is good. Definitely higher spirits than last time we spoke. That I think last night even exceeded my expectations as far as how Joel looked, how the vibes were, and I'm ready to start talking about some serious playoff runs in a way that I wasn't sure we were gonna be able to have these conversations this year. So for me, my vibes are sky high right now.
Yeah, and I'll second that. I mean, it's been gloomy the whole week. It's been raining, pouring, ugly. But last night at the Wells Fargo, it was absolutely shining. For once in the last 2.5 months, I actually enjoyed watching the game. Joel Embiid going through the routine. He is dominant. He can't be stopped. Maybe I'm a little too high right now. Maybe there's, flaws to take into consideration. I get it, right? But for once, and I'll pose this back to you guys, did the injury gods finally help the Sixers out? And instead of hurting Embiid going into the playoffs, he hurts him in the middle of the season. And then he comes back with 6 games to go, fully rested, in shape, by the way. This guy looked like he was 25 pounds lighter last night. I'm so locked in. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to run through a brick wall. Let's get into it, man.
Yeah, love it. And the fitness, I guess, will come a little bit, that he absolutely looks slimmer, which I think is a big deal. He was clearly winded by the end with the hands on the knees, and that's going to happen when you take 2 months off, especially when you're 285 pounds or whatever that he's weighing in at. And even as much as like you want to be on an exercise bike or zero gravity treadmill or whatever, there's no way to replicate true basketball pace in that way. So it's good that he does have this little ramp up period. But I'm with you, RB, that I think if you were to paint the best outcome for the Sixers from an injury standpoint for Joel Embiid, it's likely him getting hurt when he got hurt. That this little ramp up period for him to go into the playoffs fully healthy for really the first time in his career. The only other real argument there is after the bubble, which during that stretch was without Horford on the team and Ben Simmons with a broken back. So can't even really count that as a legitimate chance. So I'm gassed up. I think this team's ready to run with him. And I like that he's kind of taken on a little bit more of a leadership aspect, saying that I think this team is ready. And that's essentially why I returned.
And you know what I want to say to that, too? I went back and forth with some people last night because I said that Embiid didn't miss a beat. And I feel like people misunderstood what I was saying. Not that he played a perfect game by any means, but I expected him to come in and play 6 to 10 minutes, not look that good, be out of shape. Now, he was running around. Nurse threw him right into the fire, and he was ready to answer. And you know what happened last night? Joel Embiid made winning plays. We'll talk about a couple others that made winning plays. But when it came down to the end, when it mattered in crunch time, I didn't think Embiid was coming back in.
No.
He said, Coach, put me in. His hands were on his knees. He was gassed. But you know what he did? He had one of the best defensive plays I've ever seen him make. He was locked in for a full 24, steals it away, goes coast to coast, and draws the foul. And it just showed me what the Sixers have missed for the last 2.5 months, the ability to close out games. And it's because of Joel Embiid and his magnitude, and he helped win that game last night. It was incredible.
Yeah, without him out there in that last possession, maybe somebody just drives to the basket like they've been doing since he got injured and just does gets a wide open layup probably, or an offensive rebound, So yeah, just that one play is such a microcosm of just what he brings to the table and how much he changes the team. Yeah, let's get into it, man. So yeah, let's start with first impressions of Joel Embiid's return. My first impressions are, again, just like you said, I thought it was incredible. I expected him to come out and get some conditioning and jog up and down the floor and maybe sit down in the second half. I didn't, especially once the game got close and like you said, it was 4 minutes left and he came back in. I was like, wait, he's coming back in? That's really happening? They're really trying to use him to attempt to win this game. I just thought they were going to use the last couple of games of the season to be like, listen, We don't really care that much to fight our way out of the play-in. We're going to live with where we are right now, and we're just going to get him back in the swing of things. For him to be a major part of dragging the team to victory was just it blew my mind. I didn't see that coming. My overall assessment of what he looked like, he was definitely tired. He was definitely winded. And anytime you play basketball after not playing for a couple of months, it's that first wind. That first 5 minutes you're running, it feels like you got punched in the chest. And you could see that from him. I think Nurse took him out I think he was only out there for 4 or 5 minutes to start the game when he came out the first time. So I think that'll come back pretty quickly. But yeah, he was tired. I think the bright side is that most people seemed like they assumed that he wasn't going to be healthy. I think that was the natural thought that most people had. They were like, we shouldn't force him back. It's going to ruin his career. And I kept saying, I've been saying for a straight month, I'm like, do you think these medical professionals are going to let him go back out there if it's not healed? That doesn't make any sense from a medical standpoint, and it doesn't make any sense from a business standpoint, because at the end of the day, you want him to play 4 or 5 more years so you can keep filling up this arena. You don't want to ruin his career over the end of one season. And they thought he was going to come out there and be limping around and not be healthy. And so I think it's great that we at least saw. It looks like the knee is 100% healed. He just needs to get his conditioning under him. So that was just an amazing sign to me, because most people thought he was going to be out there on one leg struggling, and it didn't look like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you, DJ. I saw a ton of that as well, of people really speculating that. And from a logistics standpoint, it didn't make sense either. That we kind of were expecting this to be a 6 to 8 week injury. That yesterday marked exactly 8 weeks post-surgery. That is the normal timeline for this type of thing. And I know there's always the weirdness surrounding the Sixers going down to last night, to him being even made available, that it's just not as normal as a traditional team. That's just the Sixers that we deal with. But he did look himself. He did look healthy. And I even think there was a spryness to his movement that I hadn't seen in a couple of years from Joel. His kind of lateral side to side, I think is probably directly correlated to him dropping some pounds and being thin, but he will play himself more into shape. But just that little bit of movement I was really impressed with. And also another area that I thought he took some significant strides forward at the start of this year was as a playmaker. And I thought that carried right into last night, that the decisions were fairly sharp. He was good as a passer. He was adjusting to double teams. Those were the steps that he took early on in the season. And it was nice to see that he didn't take any strides backwards in that during his time off.
Yeah, I mean, I have no questions about what I saw last night. I was one of the skeptics that came in more so based on the reporting of the injury, because I feel like we never got a clear diagnosis. Like, yes, here's what it is. Here's how long he'll be out, and here's when we can expect him back. It was always just up in the air for people to assume. But when he came back last night, like Sean said, I didn't expect him to play. I was on the way to the game thinking it was just going to be another one of those games that we end up losing in the fourth quarter. But he comes out and you immediately saw the impact of the game. The Sixers are a completely different team with Joel Embiid. And I don't know about you guys, this has been the weirdest season ever. Do we remember that James Harden and PJ Tucker started this year on the team? And then at one point, the Sixers had no issues closing teams out. They would get to the fourth quarter and rest all their starters. Then Joel Embiid went down. It feels like we were in no man's land. And now it feels like they can contend with some of the greater teams with Joel Embiid back on the floor. I don't know. This whole season's just been it almost feels like timeless in a way. And here we are heading into the playoffs. The Sixers, nobody's going to think of them as a contender. Nobody's going to think of them as a team that can really make some noise. And I feel like it's because they forgot what this team looked like with Joel Embiid before. So in my eyes, all they can do is get better. All Joel's going to do is get better, in better shape, and get more comfortable. Let's, remember, he hasn't played with Buddy Hield. He hasn't played with Campaign, Kyle Lowry. So now you have a sample size to see what you can throw out there. And yeah, I thought Nurse kind of played him a little bit too much last night, but it seemed like he was ready to handle it. And you got the W. That's all that matters.
I think I heard that he was waving off Paul Reed a lot of times. So I think Nurse was trying to sub him out. And he was like, no. There was
one point where Matt Cord actually announced Paul Reed coming in, and Reed ran in, and Joel said, no, go back to the bench. And then Matt Cord said, oh, not yet. Sorry. And it was just, everybody was laughing because Joel said, nah, keep me out there. And I think one thing we've learned, no matter what you think about Joel, This guy wants to win, man. He would not be back on the floor. There are some guys in this league that would have hung it up for the rest of the season. Not Joel Embiid. He wants to win.
Yeah, I think I was going back to his rookie season, also against the Oklahoma City Thunder, his debut. But there was a game his rookie season that went into overtime, and he was on a minutes restriction, and he wasn't allowed to come back in the game, and he kicked the benches, and that was like an iconic thing. And I was just picturing that. I'm like, what if he's on a minutes restriction, and this is a close game, and he's not allowed to come back in? What's he going to do? But I guess at this point in his career, he's allowed to say, no, I'm staying out, guys. Go back to the bench. I'm good.
Yeah. And you want that out of him. That's a good trait in a player, to have that desire to win. That, to me, like, sets the tone for the team. That's what we're about, especially in a first game back, of having kind of not just the stones, but the desire to wave off a guy and say, no, I'm staying and I'm playing this game. So I think Joel is built like that far more than he gets credit across national circles. And I'm with you, RB, that I think there's a lot of guys that straight up aren't, that they are in it for the paycheck, that they know their worth, or aren't going to risk one game over the long-term potential. I like that Joel has that fight on a night in and night out standpoint, and it's cool that he showed that last night. So I was impressed with that, and I do think that sets the tone for the entire organization.
I'm much more glad that he came back last night. Now that I think about it, when we look forward, I mean, tomorrow is probably the biggest game of the season. You're going up against Miami. If you lose that game, you're probably going to be locked into the 8 seed. Not for sure, but this is a huge opportunity to kind of pull within. And I'm sure we'll talk about the play-in and all that, but tomorrow's a big game. So to try to throw him out in the fire in Miami, where he typically struggles, I don't think that would have been the best idea to just start off with.
At first I thought you were saying he's ruled out already tomorrow. I think that's not what you were saying, right?
I was saying I'm glad he played yesterday instead of his first game being against the Heat, because that would just be a tough way to like throw him into the mix,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Oklahoma City was a good one to start with. I was saying that I'm like, they last time we played them, they didn't do anything special. They let Chet guard him one-on-one the whole first half, really. And I mean, let's be serious. That's basically. And I like Chet a lot, and he plays hard, but he's a third of the size of Joel Embiid, width-wise at least. So yeah, it was good. And I was saying, like, I couldn't imagine. We'll get into the they might get fined thing that came out because of how they handled the injury report, or lack thereof, or however they did it. They did it just how the Sixers do everything, the weirdest way possible. But yeah, I was saying, like, if the knee's healthy and he's been through scrimmages and all he needs is his conditioning, then why wouldn't he play against Oklahoma City? I couldn't figure out actually why he was ruled out, because I was like, what are they going to list as a reason? If all you need is conditioning, he should be out there as soon as possible. So I was like, it just makes perfect sense for him to come back against OKC. And I still don't actually know what the reason was for them to start with him listed as out instead of just listing him as questionable from the beginning. It doesn't really make any sense. And do you think it's like a strategy that the team uses and they keep getting fined by the NBA, or are they actually that bad at their job that like whoever was supposed to change it to questionable, like, forgot or something? You get all the way to the game and they're like, oh, he's playing. Wait, you were supposed to let us know if he's playing. I don't get it, man.
Yeah, it is bizarre. Go ahead, RV.
No, I was just going to say, I was thinking about that too. And Tyrese Maxey was actually the guy that went to shoot around, who I thought was going to play, and they ruled him as questionable originally, and he ends up not playing. And Joel, the guy that didn't go to shoot around, ends up playing. So I don't know. I don't know what to figure out. I think they're just kind of bad at their job, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, and this will be the second time that they receive a fine for Joel Embiid's injury report, because the other time being in Denver, where he was not listed on the injury report whatsoever and then ruled out last minute. I can speak to that with Joel specifically. It's more of a collaborative decision than any other player really in the league. That this dates back to when he first got there, that every game he was listed as questionable, and every game it was go through the pregame routine. How are you feeling? What are the doctors saying? And then it's whether you play or not. And that's kind of carried out throughout his career. So I do think Joel definitely plays a hand in this. And even when you think back to how often this has been the case, that this has been through multiple regimes of this being the situation. Back to Doc Rivers, Brett Brown, even pre-Daryl Morey, with Elton Brand, whoever you want to attach to this, that it's always been Joel as the constant for this being an issue. But the bottom line is you just got to clean it up, man. Like, what's the harm in just listing him as questionable if that were the case throughout all of yesterday? Like, what is the bad part of that? I don't see the downside. So definitely strange. We'd like them to clean it up, but the bottom line is Joel's back.
They've always been mysterious with things like this. And,
Yeah.
part of me starts to think that it's coming from the top. A guy that doesn't really maybe know what he's doing necessarily, but just has this idea of like, don't let them know. Don't let the fans know because it's going to be bad. Don't let them know. You can go all the way back to the Markelle Fultz thing. Like, you couldn't just tell us that he hurt his shoulder and he's seeing a specialist. Like, it lasted so long. It was just this, like, we don't want to tell the fans what's going on thing. And so, they just, why wouldn't they do it that way? That's exactly how they did it. So this was from Tim Bontemps on the Hoop Collective. The Sixers are going to get fined. I would say I feel pretty confident in saying the Sixers are fully aware and comfortable with the fact that they're going to get fined. And you know what? Joel Embiid's playing again, so it's worth whatever fine they have to pay. Couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah.
But it's just funny that this is the way that they handle things.
So unnecessary, but I do agree with the sentiment there that at least Joel Embiid's back, and you know what, that is the bottom line here. And I do hope that he suits up tomorrow against the Heat. I saw he's listed as questionable on the injury report officially, and I know Embiid spoke post game that he wants to see how the knee responds, which obviously is completely fair. And if there is any sort of swelling or something like that, that changes the conversation greatly. But the bottom line is, I think my biggest concern is this guy playing himself in a legitimate shape, and that's only going to happen by him continuing to get on the court. So I would like tomorrow to be another one of those examples, especially with it's going to be a full playoff atmosphere down there. That you're not wrong, RB, that this is the biggest game of the season for this Sixers team, especially as they chase in the standings. And the Heat, who in my eyes are probably the second scariest team in the East right now, despite what the standings say. So I'm pretty excited about tomorrow and hope Joel is on the floor.
Sean throwing out some tidbits there, but whether I agree or disagree, I agree that tomorrow is the biggest game of the year. And I'm a bit worried because, like you said, Joel's on the injury report, but not only him. I saw Tobias is on there as questionable. Maxi's questionable. Rocco, Melton. Like, are we going to get one of those, like, before the game updates again that these guys are playing? Are they not? Are we worried about Tyrese Maxey? I mean, guys, we got 6 games to go. Like, Tyrese, you have to be ready to rock. And even before he played a couple games ago, he was not really looking that hot. So
yeah,
Tyrese, okay. We need everybody. We will need everybody come playoff time. But then again, you're trying to lock up that 6 or 7 seed. So it's like, where do you draw the line? Do you just kind of sit back and say, yeah, we'll take the 8 seed, or do you try to push for it? I think tomorrow night is a big determinant in what happens.
Yeah. Well, I noticed you threw Tobias Harris in there as sort of a negative, like it was part of the oh no, we're gonna play without. No, I will say that yesterday, I was hard on him because of what he did at the end of the game. That's just what he does at end of games. As soon as the pressure gets the highest, it's just it's really unbelievable. I'm like, how the hell do you airball a 13-foot jump shot inside the free throw line? But he, the more I thought about it a little bit later, he was kind of the reason we were in the game with the way he was shooting in the first half, or a big part of the reason we were in the game. But so that's,
I want to comment on that though. Like, again, I don't want to take anything away from Tobias. He had a pretty decent game yesterday, but I was just watching the little things that you see up close. Like, he's shying away from the ball in big moments. And we'll talk about Kelly.
That's fun. I don't want him to touch the ball in big moments.
I agree.
But continue.
It's frustrating, man. Like you said, like those 2 shots back to back were like really momentum swingers, and to miss as bad as you did, it almost sucked the life out of everybody sitting around me. Everybody's just like, they let out an like, damn, man. But thankfully,
somebody on the playback said they were booing after the second one, the 3-pointer that hit off the backboard.
We all were booing because we were like, Tobias, at this point, just get out of the way. And thankfully, the Sixers have another player on a minimum contract who, in my eyes, should have been re-signed last night. I would have went into the office and said, Kelly, we want you back for 3 years, because he's just phenomenal, man. 17 points in the fourth quarter. I didn't even know that when I was there until this morning, but holy crap. Like, 17. Kelly Oubre is a winner.
Yeah.
He's a winner, man. Like, he made winning plays. Just like I said about Embiid, Kelly impacted that game, man. He's just phenomenal, man. And I'm just happy that he's on this team. I really am. And I think he should be the third option.
Yeah,
He is.
4 of 7 from 3 yesterday. Defensively, he's jumped off the page to me all year that he's been far more committed on that end of the floor than I expected coming in. And there's a play that I tweeted out that really stood out to me last night from Kelly of him going through a pick and roll with Embiid and then hitting Embiid almost like Harden used to do on a little just backwards pass layoff. And it's like, if that's clicking in Kelly's head right now as a playmaker, like this dude is locked in and ready to be a core part of this team. And he's outperformed his contract by a major margin all year. That's no surprise. I'm with you, RB, that I'm bought in and ready to make this guy a long part of the team. I mean, I have a pretty high tolerance for guys like Kelly that they're just going to compete their ass off all game. And that's what he's been on a night-to-night basis, that I'll take a couple of the poor shots or bad heat check shot decisions that you're going to have to live with. But his competitive nature, the way that he brings it every single night, I love on this team. And the athleticism is the real deal. I'm all about Kelly Oubre and 100% with you that I want him on a part of this franchise.
And you know what it is we saw Kelly at the beginning of the year. Remember what his role was, right? Just kind of like trying to find his feet in this team. And the recognition for him to come out with Embiid out and say, you know what, even though I'm not the guy that should be stepping up, let me go put up 25 to 30 a night. Like, I have so much respect for a guy that's willing to put his body on the line like that, who's not even extended long-term. Like, he's playing for a contract, and maybe that kind of feeds into it, but like just the competitive nature to recognize that and say, I'm going to be the guy. Like, he's just awesome, man. And I hope they keep him around long-term.
I also think it's easier to deal with some of the things that Kelly does because we've seen a couple players over the course of the last 5 or so years now that lack confidence.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's just been this, oh, we need to get his confidence up. Oh, we need this. And I'm me watching basketball my whole life. I'm not used to those kind of conversations with NBA players in the first place. So you see a guy like Kelly Oubre, and when he chucks a 35-foot heat check, you're like, I like that. I appreciate that you are that confident that you are like, I'm shooting this shot. And, you know, yeah, sometimes he attacks a triple team and doesn't look at around at all, but it's just, yeah, it's like you feel like he earned it because of the way that he plays the game. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I completely agree with that.
And I also think that, like, speaking in the long term, like looking forward to this team, it would not surprise me whatsoever if now we start to see Tobias's minutes get cut into a little bit. That's like during the shorthanded stretch where Tobias was really playing his worst that I would say ever in a Sixers uniform. They didn't really have like the ability to bench him because of how shorthanded they already were. Now that like the roster is fully complete, and hopefully there's that even grows with guys like Covington and Melton hopefully getting back on the floor. I think now is when we can start to see Nick Nurse start to make those tough decisions. And really, if we're just looking at this with objective eyes and no dollar signs attached to it, Tobias Harris should not be in the closing lineups in a lot of nights. And I would love to see that be the actuality. And because of a guy like Kelly Oubre outplaying his expectations and showing capable of doing that, that opens the door for that to be possible.
That's what it's going to take for this team to have playoff success. And if, you know, nobody else will say it, we have to. Like, Kelly Oubre has earned that role. And like, he's so likable. Like, it's really not that hard to be liked by Philly, but I saw one of the quotes he made last night, and they were saying, how did you feel when they announced Embiid was back? And he said, I felt really bad. Like, my heart sunk, but for the other team, because I knew they were about to get destroyed. Like, those are the things that win this city over. And when he goes out there, and he had a steal and a slam in the fourth quarter last night, and he's flexing up to the second level. It's like, dude, like, Philly loves you, man. Just keep putting it all out on the floor. And I mean, obviously to put up 17 in the fourth quarter is ridiculous, but I think guys in that locker room are starting to look at guys like Kelly like, yo, we're dependent on you. We're depending on you to do this, man. Like, he has earned that. And I agree. There are a lot of players I would take over Tobias in the closing lineup.
Yeah. A city like Philly just really, really respects underdogs and guys with a chip on their shoulder, and you know, the hungry dogs run faster mantra of Jason Kelsey, and Kelly Oubre is that guy. And again, for years we've you know, we went through the tank and we got some guys that are overpaid, overhyped, treated like celebrities their whole life, walked in here on a, you know, with a silver spoon, and Philly's like, bro, you're stinking it up. And then you get booed, and you make comments after a game about the fans booing you, and it's just, there's never, you know, Kelly Oubre made comments about when they got booed a couple of weeks ago, And he was like, dude, they were about to boo us out of the building if we didn't pick it up. I'm like, exactly. He understands why they were getting booed. It's not that hard to grasp. And guys like, Bryce Harper and Jalen Hurts have had the same kind of quotes about the team being booed. Like, we were playing like shit and they started booing us. There's no, he's just one of those guys that gets it. He gets what Philly wants. Just compete, play hard. And yeah, if you guys are trash, we're going to boo you, but don't fight back. Just accept it. Look in the mirror.
Yeah. And another guy that I think clearly gets it and has exceeded my expectations in a major margin is Kyle Lowry. That Lowry's another guy who feels built for this team, feels built for this city. He's obviously a Philadelphia kid that has been around and one of the more successful NBA careers, ring on his finger, all the All-Stars, everything that you want to say. He's still got way more left in the tank than I expected at this point. That charge he took last night was huge as far as opening the door for a win for the Sixers team, leading the Sixers in charges on the year, which is wild considering he's played less than 20 games in a Sixers uniform. But I'm all in on Lowry, and some of this I know had to do with Tyrese Maxey not being there yesterday, but I thought it was interesting Nick Nurse pairing all the minutes with Kyle Lowry and Joel Embiid, that every moment Joel Embiid was on the floor last night, so was Kyle Lowry. So I think we're working ourselves into this guy being like the point guard of this team, and I think that has some really exciting potential.
Oh, absolutely. And while we're giving flowers, one guy, I will say it, I was wrong. Cameron Payne is a bucket. This guy is a baller. And you know who led the Sixers in rebounds last night? Cameron Payne. He had 10 rebounds. This guy's 6'2". Realistically, he's listed at, I think, 6'3". This guy wants to win, man. He's another guy that gets it. And I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics, whether it's Buddy and Joel, Kyle and Joel, Maxey and Joel. Like, there's a lot of different combinations. Even you said Kelly and Joel. Like, the Sixers are about to get crafty. And I just think Nick Nurse, realistically, has not revealed all his tricks yet. I think there's a lot he's saving. And when we get to a playoff series, for once, Sixer fans are going to see we have a coach that can give us an advantage, not pull us back in a series. And what coach other than maybe Spoelstra are you taking over Nick Nurse in the East right now? Like, I think Nurse is about to coach laps around these guys. And that's really why I have been saying the Sixers are going to be a dark horse, because Nurse never has gone down easy in a playoff series. We're going to see things that we have not seen yet. And I'm excited, man.
I believe it too. And you saw a little bit of it when we played Miami. They were undermanned. We were undermanned. And you could see the back and forth chess match of their counters and their moves. And we've never seen anything like that in this era of Sixers basketball, of a coach countering another coach's counter and them just having a chess match on the floor. And he outcoached Eric Spoelstra in that game. So I agree with you on that. The Lowry and Embiid, I think we're getting towards like, so a couple of months ago, maybe before the trade deadline, we were still in this like, who outside of Tyrese Maxey is going to step up and do anything? And now I feel like we're getting to a point where there's like 3 or 4 guys stepping up, and it's almost the opposite, where it's like, who's going to play at the end of the game? Because this guy's playing so well, and this guy's playing so well, and there's only this many spots on the floor. There's only 5 guys to finish the game. And, that takes me back to, Sean, what you were talking about with Tobias Harris. Because, last night he was playing well in the first half, so I get that. But do you honestly see, like, say he's 0 for 10 in the first half, do you honestly see him on the bench to close out a game? Because for some reason, I just feel like he has immunity when it comes to that because of his longevity with the team, the contract, all those types of things. But yeah, if Cameron Payne has 15 in the first half and Buddy Hield's having a good shooting night, you get to the end of the game, you got to have one of those guys out there, I feel like. And Nurse has some things to figure out. I just feel like the Tobias Harris not being able to be put on the bench in the fourth quarter is going to hinder some of that potentially great fourth quarter lineups when certain players are hot. And I would love to feel like if he's having a bad game, Nick Nurse is going to say, I'm doing what's best to win this game. What do you think?
Yeah, it certainly feels that way, that he does have immunity, that this is a guy that he's always been the guy that's been allowed to play through whatever, be on the court through whatever. This is why we're trusting Nick Nurse, that it has to happen this year. And with Tobias specifically, my argument has always been against Tobias, that what is his defining trait for why he needs to stick on the court? What is the reason? What does Tobias bring to this team that nobody else does? My fault. I glitched out a little bit there. But
No,
For
I was laughing because I can't find the answer.
Oh,
There.
got you, yeah.
There's nothing he does great.
Yeah, like when you look at each of these guys on the roster, there's like the one trait that you know you're gonna get. Like with Kelly, it is the athleticism, the motor that he's gonna bring. With Buddy Hield, that he's a sniper, he's going to knock down 3-pointers. Kyle Lowry, it's additional ball handling, it's the grit on defense. Tobias is just like a jack of all trades, a master of none. That there isn't that one skill set that he brings. And for a specific like critique of last night, like he was getting beat off the dribble by Lou Dort last night. And no disrespect to Lou Dort, who's like a fine NBA player, but that just can't happen. So like I'm with you that there absolutely feels like there's this immunity. But if they actually want to take this stride to become this like championship contending team, these are the hard decisions that need to be made. And that's why Nick Nurse is in this position. So I'm not saying that I'm 1,000% it's going to happen, but it absolutely should if they want to take it to that next level.
Yeah, I would probably keep Tobias. Like I would cut his minutes in half if it was up to me. Just let him come in during like certain spots and try to like, because really, let's be honest, Tobias racks up those dead points. Like I never really, see him drop 17. It's like, oh wait, he has 17 points in this game. But I mean, I think where the Sixers are going to struggle is the rebounding component. Like last night, there was a play where Chet's like jumping up against like Campaign or someone, and Tobias is just sitting behind Chet watching the rebound. And they showed it like 4 times on the replay. I think it was challenged. And I'm like, who's going to step into that spot? Like, if I'm thinking right now off the top of my head, maybe the best bet is to go with Batum at the 4, Oubre at the 3, and maybe that's how you roll with it. But again, are we getting Rocco back? They said he was going to come back yesterday. They said he's going to come back tomorrow. When's he coming back? Like, Rocco could make a difference on this team, even though Nurse kind of like pulled away from him before he got injured, which I don't understand. I thought he was playing well, but like, who's going to be that rebounder next to Joel Embiid? Because we've seen it before. We've seen the dark times of the Sixers getting out rebounded in a playoff series. It is not pretty. Who's going to be that guy? And if it's not Tobias, like, I'm sorry, he cannot play. Like you said, what's that defining skill?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the love that Nurse already has for Lowry, but Lowry doing the things that he does well, I could see him being in most of the closing lineups, even with Maxey out there. And like you were talking about how good Lowry's looking alongside Joel Embiid. And then you're looking at like, if Campaign's hot, are you going to run 3 guards out there in the fourth quarter, depending on the matchup? If Buddy Hield's shooting the lights out and say, he's part of the reason you're there, you would want, and you come down to a close game, you would maybe want Buddy Hield to be out there. So Nurse has a lot of things to figure out. And I think I just want to know that he has full flexibility to put whoever out there he wants, whoever out there he feels is playing the best and has the best chance of winning a game. So, there was one game, maybe a month ago, Tobias was playing really bad in the first half, and Ricky Council came in the game in the first half, and by the end of it, Tobias had 27 minutes, and he was fully healthy. So, maybe that's around where Nurse could get him to if he's not playing well. If he's having a good Tobias game, by all means, I'm not, you know what I mean? But if he's not playing well, 27 minutes, 25.
Yeah, completely fair to me. And another guy I wanted to bring up that we haven't really touched on yet is Buddy Hield. That I was pounding the table, so excited that Buddy Hield would be in a Sixers uniform. It's felt like forever that we've hoped for this to be the case, and I've been really underwhelmed so far. I kind of want to get your guys' temperature on Buddy. I know, I think it's going to look better the more that he gets to play with Joel, and that's really why he's here, for some of that 2-man action. But I've been just kind of disappointed in the way he's looked so far. So curious your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue against that. I've expected more out of Buddy Hield. I know everybody keeps saying, wait till Joel comes back, wait till Joel comes back. And I know there's games where they don't get him enough touches to kind of get him in rhythm. But even the things we saw early on from Buddy, like his playmaking ability or driving to the rim, a little more than we had expected, all that just went away.
He had 10 assists one game.
Yeah, and he had over 20 the first 4 games, and it all just went away. Like, did they figure him out? Is he not as consistent? Like, the Sixers gave up draft picks to get that guy and valuable assets. And keep in mind, he's not like signed past the end of the year. So do we get to McDaniels territory where he ends up walking in free agency and we don't even bring him back? I think he could be an X factor on this team, but I agree with you. I've been very underwhelmed. And, the Sixers will need his shooting down the stretch 100%.
Yeah, his first couple of games here, it wasn't even just the shooting. Yeah, like you said, he was making all kinds of plays. He was driving to the rim, right hand, left hand. He was making plays, passing the ball, and we were like, wow, he's got a lot more game than we thought he had. I thought this guy was just a catch and shoot 3-point shooter. And then maybe it was a Knicks game. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head if there was a Knicks game in there. Somebody might have played him really physical, pushed him outside the 3-point line, didn't let him get to his spots. He had a bunch of turnovers, a bunch of bad shots, and it affected his confidence. I feel like with Maxey out there and then having to play some of the games without Maxey when Maxey got the concussion, and he really struggled without Maxey when he went out without that concussion. And maybe it's a confidence thing right now, but he's definitely not doing all of the things that he was doing in the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe it's teams that are game planning for him, and maybe after the trade deadline they just were not. But I also don't see a lot of like called action for him. Last night I did see one that I remember off the top of my head that it was a Lowry Embiid pick and pop, and then Buddy came around a dribble an Embiid handoff, and he got to like a mid range jumper, and you get him going downhill and he can step back. He can stop and pop the three. He can get to a mid-range, whatever. I don't think he's a very good ISO player. I don't think he's realistically going to beat many guys off the dribble or anything like that. But Nurse is a strategic coach. Maybe he gets him back involved, but it hasn't really felt like he's tried that much to get him back involved.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with that too. And I guess specifically what I've been disappointed in, I think the number one thing that's jumped out is everything feels a little bit slower with Buddy Hield than it should. That the decision making, the willingness to let it fly, and even in that DHO last night, which I want to see more and more of that can be incredibly efficient offense. We've seen it with JJ Redick, Seth Curry, and I pounded the table and argued that I think Buddy Hield could be a better overall basketball player than either of those guys. He at least can hold up defensively more than either one of them can. But like even that specific play, there was still some hesitation in Buddy to just let it fly. Like there's almost like a herky-jerkiness to getting into his motion, which shouldn't be there for a guy who's throughout his entire career been one of the best shooters in the NBA. So I would love just kind of a shake Buddy by the shoulders and be like, dude, you're one of the best shooters in the league. Go let it fly more than you are. And shout out to Kyle Neubeck for writing up his article last night that there was a little bit of a conversation between Joel and Buddy last night following the game, basically saying like, you have to take these looks, but I think he does for this offense to function. But I agree with you, DJ, that I would like to see more of an effort to make sure he is getting those looks.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, it kind of just comes down to Joel has to elevate everybody. That's what it feels like to me. There are certain guys that will take the initiative, but it's just going to take a different like concept of learning to play with Joel for some of these guys. And we have to hope and pray that it happens. Like with all these deficiencies, Joel Embiid can make up a lot of them, right? But like, is it enough in a playoff series? Can he do enough based on where he's at health-wise, progress-wise, etc., to help this team get over the top? Like, can they go out and are we being too optimistic, too pessimistic? Do we think that this team can go the distance? Like, can actually win a play-in, win a playoff series in an upset, and get to the second round and try to get past the second round? Like, where are we at with that? Because I really don't know at this point. I'm trying to make myself believe that with Joel, everything can be changed, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm believing that like people forget how good, and I think DJ's pulling up this exact one here. Yeah, like just look at the difference with and without Joel, and I'll let DJ riff here, but that's night and day.
Yeah, I was just pulling that up because you started talking about it, and I wanted to pull this up eventually. Anyway, the fact that so with Joel Embiid's return last night, this is how they looked with and without him. With Embiid, they were 27-8, just top of the league in offensive in points per game and offensive rating, and sixth in the league in defensive rating. And I want to point out that this was with Marcus Morris and Patrick Beverley, and I mean the only point guard on the team really was Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
So the math there says that's a 27-8 record with Embiid. It would have had Philly on a pace to win 63 games this season. Then you add Kyle Lowry, who gives Tyrese Maxey more freedom and is probably better at. I loved what Maxey was doing with Embiid in the beginning of the season, but I'm gonna say Kyle Lowry's probably better at the pick and roll game just off of his experience with Joel. You add him and Cameron Payne and Buddy Hield to that, and I have no reason to believe that every team in the league is going to have trouble stopping this team if Joel's healthy.
Yeah, one of the numbers that jumps to me there is look at the 3-point percentage. 38.1% with Joel, which is tied for 5th in the league, and then without him 34.8%, which is tied for the worst. That's gravity. That is creating shots because he demands such an attention from the defense, and that's where guys like Buddy Hield should be able to step up. I think this number is only going to go up. I saw DJ you tweeting kind of the splits for each player. That is super impressive. How just night and day it is with Joel Embiid there, and that's what a true superstar does. That is elevating everyone around him. That is creating looks, and because he is going to continue to command 2 and 3 defenders on an every play basis, which was the case last night in his first game back and will continue to be. That's where guys can capitalize, and it does feel like this year that they have guys that can punish teams for that in a way that past years they just didn't.
So I don't want to be like the only negative Nancy here, whatever. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit, right? So the way I'm thinking about this is, all right, 2 things. 1, in a playoff series, and this is the first question, have we seen enough from Tyrese Maxey to think that he can go out in a full playoff series and be the consistent number 2 option? And then the second thing is, if the Sixers get into the play-in and it remains the way it is now, 1, can they beat Miami in Miami? And then 2, if they lose that and win the second play-in game, what do we think they do against Boston in the first round? You know, it's kind of a tough path to getting to where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it right now. But I think they have a shot to compete with anybody because of Joel Embiid and his magnitude.
Yeah, so for the Tyrese thing, for starters, for sure, this is uncharted waters as far as expectation for him. But I think there's something positive to him as far as last year it was the James Harden, Joel Embiid 2-man action. That you can't argue with the efficiency of that. The numbers were off the charts. But there was something so robotic about it of that you knew what the decisions were on every play basis. That with Maxey, there's like this refreshing randomness of he might run off ball. He might run down a screen or do something that it's just not as traditional pick and roll, pick and pop. You know what the decisions are. That I think is important. That I think that's part of the reason why the Denver Nuggets are as effective as they are with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, that there's so many options that you can go with. So I think that to me is a reason for optimism for why this offense has a higher ceiling. And then as far as like the guys around it, it just doesn't feel like there's such stark weaknesses. Like PJ Tucker, who I love more so than most, I would say, and still had those moments. That still was like a guy that you didn't have to pay attention to on the offensive end. There isn't a guy like that on this roster. It just feels more well-rounded, and each guy feels like their strengths and weaknesses are more built around Joel than I feel has ever been the case, which gives me optimism as well. And then the injury thing, I still think is relevant here, that we're going to see this man healthy for the first time really ever in his playoff career.
Yeah, and I think Tyrese Maxey is there. You know, if playoff games come down to the fourth quarter, close game, I see him. I mean, he's still number 2 to Joel, obviously, but I see him being closer to a 1B where if you want to throw the kitchen sink at Joel, good luck stopping Tyrese Maxey. And I've seen him enough this season. Maybe not seasons past, but this season I've definitely seen him put the team on his shoulders in fourth quarters plenty of times. And not look like he lacked any type of confidence whatsoever. Just a swag about him that was like, I am right now the best player on the court. Nobody can stop me. I'm shooting the ball again. Give it back to me. Get out of my way. And that's kind of been the attitude that we've been waiting for Tyrese Maxey to grow into. And I feel like he's there this season. I definitely think he's not at his ceiling by any means. When he's 27 or 28 years old, he might be a bona fide superstar. But I think he's there enough right now to be a very high level number 2 next to Joel Embiid. And so I have no reason not to have all the confidence in the world in him right now. And, you know, 2 50-point games this season. And I think the Kelly Oubre thing is going to be a big part of it too, really, because looking at the Denver Nuggets, you know, Aaron Gordon's such a big part of that, having multiple options, because that's the whole goal. Like, here's our first option, right? If you take that away, here's our second option. If you take that away, guess what? Alley-oop Aaron Gordon on the baseline. And Kelly Oubre had a quote last night about it's going to take a couple games for us to learn what we need to do when Joel's on the floor, but he mentioned cutting to the basket. And I'm like, I've watched this team for years now, and I feel like that's what they've always lacked. And Kelly Oubre is a guy that's going to bring that. Another reason why maybe I would rather see a more athletic, aggressive player out there than Tobias Harris in certain situations. But I think Kelly Oubre is going to be a huge part of it. And that's the big three for me right now. The Maxey and Embiid. I didn't think I'd be saying it when they signed him, but Kelly Oubre can hit you with 27 or 28 on a good night if you're paying attention to those two guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to disagree with that. I would just hope that they are as consistent as they've been, lately. I hope Tyrese can get 100% healthy and could get confident in that playoff kind of mindset, because in years past he hasn't really been consistent. But again, I can't blame him because it is a lot for the young kid to weigh on his shoulders. I'll go back to what I said earlier. Like, if Tobias Harris is taking away touches from Oubre and Campaign or, Nico Batum, Buddy Hield, whoever it is, like those additional touches. And maybe that's another reason why Buddy hasn't been as efficient. If Tobias is taking away those touches, I feel like this team's going to run themselves into the ground, because we've seen Tobias in the playoffs against a lot of different teams. We kind of know what to expect, right? He's probably going to have one good game, but it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the team. So if Nurse has the balls or the ability to make that big decision, the Sixers may be able to come into a playoff series and win a couple of the first games. And okay, now the other team is like, all right, we're in a bad position here. And maybe you can't recoup from that, but it's going to take a lot. And I mean, Joel Embiid has a lot to prove as well after he came out in Game 7 last year the way that he did. So I just hope that this is perfect timing. And I hope that all these other guys can step up. But, it is going to take a lot. Playoffs are a different breed.
I don't think Tobias Harris actually wants any parts of that to begin with. I think the past couple of years it's been like when Joel gets shut down, we're all like, now we need Tobias Harris to step up, and then we're like, you're paid this much money, here you go. So it's kind of like he's forced into it. The body language that I see from him doesn't tell me that he wants those moments whatsoever. So if we're in that situation and he in his mind he's not confident doing it, you can just be like, listen, we overpaid you. We owe the money, cool. But you're Kelly Oubre, Embiid, Maxey, Cameron Payne's been cooking if he's having a good game, whoever else. I just think maybe you can be like, listen, if you have an open shot, take it, but you're not going to be featured in the offense just because you're the highest paid player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that is the case. But I'm also worried about the things that don't happen when he's on the ball, like the rebounding or the defense. Like Sean said earlier, he was getting beat by Lou Dort last night. A couple of times he got beat. I think it was Wiggins who beat him off dribble. We get to a playoff series, you're going to have to go. I mean, they usually put Tobias on one of the better scorers too. So if it's Boston, it'll probably be Brown or Tatum or Derek White. If it's Milwaukee, it may be, Giannis at points or maybe Middleton. Tobias, we're going to need you. Like
a big thing that he does is he lets a guy go by him waiting for help defense instead of like help defense is there for if you get beat. But he'll just let a guy go and turn around and look. And I have a clip on Instagram of him getting beat by LeBron James, and then he dunked on Mo Bamba. And I was talking about the lack of effort from Tobias just at the very beginning of the play. And it kind of blew up on Instagram. It has 150,000 views, which is probably one of the reasons he blocked me on all social media, because, something like that blows up and it says Tobias Harris gets cooked by LeBron James. And he's probably like, oh, there's this guy again. Somebody sent it to him. But, I think he relies on help defense too much. And you don't see that effort right off the beginning to try to stay in front of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
his footwork and his lateral movement, I think, has gotten worse this year, and that's never been particularly a strength of his. But it feels like he gets beat baseline like several times a game. That kind of rotation out to the corner three, he's not able to either like contest and slide his feet and keep a guy from getting baseline. Feels like he can't do both, and that's a problem. And that's really going to be like put on display on the playoffs. The teams are going to circle that if you can't prove to stop it. And this, once again, is just another reason on kind of the assurance of that's something a guy like Kelly Oubre absolutely can do and has shown he can do at a high level. Guy like Robert Covington, if he's back, absolutely can do that and at a very high level. So I am very fearful about kind of the outlook for both Melton and Covington, the fact that it has been both radio silence, but both those guys are players that I think would be impact playoff players and play high-level minutes for the Sixers team if they are available.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they're going to need everybody they can get. So, I know we're coming into these playoffs and nobody's really talking about the Sixers. And, I think they can be a dark horse team if we get that level of Embiid, especially with how he looked last night. But, it's going to take everybody. And I'm not one to just sit here and write off the season if we get beat in the first round. No. The Sixers got to this point because in my opinion, they didn't do enough to address the deadline when Embiid was out. So it's like you put yourself in a tough situation, but can this be the point where they finally get over that hump? And I hope we don't result in another second round exit.
Yeah, I could see, if I had to take a realistic guess, I mean, anything could happen. They could be a play-in exit, anything could happen, or they could go all the way. I guess what I want to say is I wouldn't be mad if they got past the second round and lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. I wouldn't be mad about that.
Absolutely.
And at that point, you'd be a lot more excited looking forward to the offseason because, again, you got a guy coming off the books and some cap space, and then you can try to improve on what you did this season. But so I think that's the short-term goal that I think I want to see for the Sixers is be in the Eastern Conference Finals.
And one of my reasons for optimism for that is I think the East is a lot weaker than people are acknowledging. That the Celtics are a team I'll throw on a little different pedestal, that they're absolutely the best team in the East and have played like it from start to finish this year. They got a ton of playoff experience, can beat in a variety of ways. The Celtics are good. But when you look beyond that, the Milwaukee Bucks, I mean, we got Doc Rivers blaming the travel staff for the reason that they lost and they're losing in road games the other day. The Cleveland Cavaliers, we've seen the Sixers team beat them twice without Joel Embiid. Orlando Magic are super young and don't have enough shooting. I don't love the way that roster's constructed, even though they've been playing very good ball. The Knicks have been hurt. The Pacers played far better ball in the beginning of the season. Like, each of these teams have flaws, is my point. That, yes, the Sixers aren't perfect, but neither are all these teams in front of them. So give this team a fighting chance.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that Doc Rivers one. Somebody mentioned it in the Discord, and I forgot to look it up, but I didn't see what he said. What did he say?
Let me get the exact quote here.
That was a great.
Because we've been saying we said for 3 years this guy just has a loser mentality. Like, he always gets up there and makes excuses. He blames traveling back to backs. He blames the NBA schedule. It's just really unbelievable. The things that he says in press conferences after losses, but I didn't hear this one.
I'll tell you guys this while Sean looks it up. Speaking of Doc Rivers, it did hurt watching Isaiah Joe just drill threes last night and how natural it looked.
Missed two big ones though.
Missed two wide open ones.
Yeah, he did. But I'd still would take that guy on my team if it was me.
Sure.
100%.
For sure. And for the Doc Rivers quote here, so the Bucks are 18-20 on the road this season. Had a really bad loss last night to the Washington Wizards of all teams. And Doc Rivers was asked post game what he attributes this kind of road struggles to, and his quote was, "quote I've actually been sitting back and watching everything, not just our players, but our travel crew, everything. We don't bring the necessary professionalism and seriousness on the road." Come on, man! Like, come on.
What?
And by the way, the Bucks employees just taking ricochet shots left and right this year.
Yeah,
dude, the equipment managers like that 50 Cent meme where it's like, what are you saying me for? What did I do?
I think we can all agree that the Bucks collapse in this playoffs is going to be monumental. It's going to be great to watch. Like, not that I'm like rooting against them or whatever, but like Doc Rivers, like, we know what's coming, right? I don't think the league knows what's coming. We know what's coming, right? They're not making it past the second round. There's absolutely no way.
No coach has done less with more than Doc Rivers in his career. That it is unbelievable. And I really do feel Adrian Griffin wasn't a perfect coach by any means, but like Doc Rivers, you got to know the book by now. Like, I can't believe that this is newfound information to so many people, that this is a guy who does not enforce responsibility or hold guys accountable. And it feels great to have watched that happen midseason, and especially knowing what's coming from here.
A lot of times I see the Bucks and I see them lose games like that and the Doc Rivers thing, and then I say, how are they still in the second seed? But anytime we play the Bucks in the regular season, and I don't want to go all NBA conspiracy theory here, but I'll just say that you don't get they're not going to get some calls in the playoffs that they get in the regular season. And same thing for the Sixers, by the way. Joel Embiid against the Who last year that were getting away with WWE in him the whole series, the Brooklyn Nets. But there's just a lot of Giannis, no travel calls, and a lot of, play halfback, plow into the defense and go to the foul line type of stuff. And I think maybe that's the reason their record is the way that it is, but kind of the reason I also still don't feel like they're a threat to do much in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these standings right here, and I want to know from you guys, because, and the chat, feel free to chime in as well. But Like, are we headed for another inevitable Heat and Celtics series in the conference finals? Because I was on the Knicks for a while and I said, oh my gosh, like when they're healthy, the Knicks may actually be able to be a team this year. And in Knicks fashion, well, they're injured, they're getting unlucky, etc. Even though Brunson's having an amazing year. But like the Pacers have been shaky. Sean talked about the Magic. I don't think they're ready to take that leap. I don't trust the Cavs at all. I think the Sixers could beat the Cavs without Joel Embiid. Based on what's happened. And Milwaukee, like we just talked about with Doc Rivers, we know that situation. Like, who's going to be the other team? Who's going to be that dark horse team? Could it be Philly or, is it going to be Miami or one of these lower seeds? Where are you guys at on that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting the way these standings shake out. That I personally am still keeping the door open for the Sixers potentially climbing to that 6th seed. That this Pacers team has struggled of late. That matchup, we mentioned it already, but against the Heat tomorrow is going to be huge as far as standings. If they don't win that one, that probably closes the door on on getting to the 6th seed. But if they find a way to win it, they're right in the run of things here. And with the Sixers schedule from here on out, they're all winnable games. The Magic are going to be the most difficult team that they face. We're talking about playing the Memphis Grizzlies, the Detroit Pistons, the Brooklyn Nets. These are the worst teams in the NBA, and that is who the Sixers close out on. So I'm not fully closing the door for them to climb to that 6th seed. And if we want to be super optimistic lenses here, we're talking about that's a first-round matchup with the Cavs, and then that would be a second-round matchup with the Bucks, assuming they take care of business. We're then talking about a pretty clean path to the Eastern Conference Finals there. Now, I know that is a lot of breaks going their way for the Sixers to have that even opportunity. But, like, if it is Heat Celtics first round, I'm not guaranteeing the Celtics win that series, man. That, like, the Heat are a team that they've been the Celtics kryptonite in years past already, and they have that same look this year. That Jimmy Butler getting off his side quest, focusing up. Jaime Jaquez is a player this year. Terry Rozier is going to make an impact. But this Heat team looks as scary as ever, and I would absolutely love for that to be a first-round matchup because at the minimum, that's going to be a bloodbath.
And also, the Pacers are losing right now to the Brooklyn Nets. So
yeah.
I mean, that would be a huge loss. And just to add on to that point, Sean, like talk about writing the story, right? Sixers get over their second round demons by taking down Doc Rivers. I mean, you couldn't write a better story, man.
Couldn't write a better story. I think maybe that played into them bringing Joel back as early as they did. Maybe they would have sat him out a couple more games, but maybe they said, listen, we're actually right there. The 6th seed is very attainable, and if we, at least bring him back on a minutes restriction and give ourselves a chance to win the Oklahoma City Thunder game and the Miami game, maybe we're in the 6th seed, and now that Cleveland's there at 3, we feel like that might be our best, our most favorable matchup in the first round. Whereas if we're coming out of the play-in tournament, I'm confident against the Bucks, but I'd still rather play the Cavs, and the New York Knicks were at number 3 just a week or so ago. So I was saying I want to stay in the play-in tournament because a healthy New York Knicks, I don't want Joel Embiid going up against them in the first round, coming off a knee surgery and as physical as they play, or just the fact that, they can stagger our offense or just really shut us down on the perimeter, at least without Joel. I don't think we've seen a lot of games fully healthy against the Knicks this season with Joel on the floor. But the Knicks have run into a bunch of injury issues. Now they got another OG Anunoby elbow issue, I think, or something else. So I think, the Sixers should be all in right now trying to get up to the 6th seed to try to face the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. That's the most favorable matchup. But one against Doc Rivers would definitely be for the history books. There would be no better way to write that story. And I would be confident. I would be confident that we win it too.
And the Bucks are losing right now to the Grizzlies. So what will the excuse be after that? They're not on the road this time. They're at home. So
the thing is, they gave him the craziest part is like it's not like you can do 1-year contracts with a coach. They gave him like 4 years,
$40 million. Yeah, $40 million.
Adrian Griffin was done wrong, man. I'm sorry. Like it's his first year. What were they, like 30 games in, 40 games in? And
they were mad about how bad the defense was. But that has a lot to do with the fact that you just traded Drew Holiday for a guy that doesn't play any defense. That's maybe not the coach. You ever think of that?
Yeah, exactly. And if there was like a clear-cut candidate, like, this coach is in a gap year, like he's the perfect fit for us, I would understand it. But are we still living in this world where Doc Rivers is the savior? Like, I don't understand it. You just saw what happened in Philadelphia, and man, it is crazy.
Just another example of how owners don't necessarily have any clue what they're doing. And owners a lot of times have their hands in certain things when they look at maybe they look at media, maybe they see how the team's being talked about on ESPN, and there could be just these guys that have their hands in all kinds of different business ventures, and they're like, listen, get rid of this coach. I don't like what they're talking about on TV. That's realistic. That could really be the way that things go down. I've felt that way about Josh Harris a lot before, but that could have happened with Milwaukee. It's not the guy that owns it doesn't necessarily know what he's doing. Actually, probably more times than not in professional sports.
Yeah, no, I agree. One other take I wanted to add, and this is kind of off topic, but now that I'm looking at the Celtics record there, I'm just thinking about it. If the Celtics don't win the chip this year, or at least get to the finals, like it's time to have a convo about Jason Tatum, right? I mean, it's never been served up on a silver platter like this for the Celtics, and Tatum has had everything you can ask for, build around him in Boston. I mean, if the Celtics don't get there, like it's time to have a serious combo. But that's just kind of a side take.
Yeah, I think one thing definitely an angle that people take a lot is that why is this team so bad without Joel Embiid? And then they'll say like when Tatum's out, the Celtics don't fold like that. And I think part of it is that Joel Embiid's such a superstar that the entire thing revolves around him. The entire system revolves around him. You're taking away the actual nucleus of the whole thing when he's gone. And Jason Tatum's a very good player who's the star on the team, but is he the actual nucleus of the team? Does the team completely fall apart when he goes away? No, because he's just, I think, the number one, but just part of the system, really, compared to a guy like Joel Embiid. I always compare Joel to Nikola Jokic as far as impact on the team, and that's why I'm like, how scared of the Nuggets would you be without Nikola Jokic? Would Jamal Murray lead them to the finals? No. You know what I mean? So that's how I always look at the Sixers without Joel versus the Celtics without Tatum. I just don't think Tatum's on that level of superstar.
Agreed.
We got a couple super chats we got to get through. Go ahead, Aubrey. You were going to say something?
No, go ahead. You're good.
Chris said, go ahead, Sean.
I do think that there's like a notable gap between, I've always been against the Tatum and the MVP conversation.
Did he freeze?
I think he's bugging out a little bit.
We lost your audio, Sean. Are you still there? We lost Sean's audio.
I say just go through the super chats.
He didn't come back. Sean didn't come back. Somebody message him. Type him up.
Oh, back now?
Oh, are you there? Yeah, there you are. There you are. We lost everything you just said, basically.
Yes. I think he's still behind. I think he's lagging.
Oh, okay. Chrissy said, yeah, the only reason I know Tobias has points during the game is the fact that he never makes shots, and it's a big thing. He's an NPC at this point. Thanks for the super chat. Mr. Rudy, I don't have much faith. Who do you think is the player employed to dive at Joel's knee? Last year it was Cam Johnson. I say Caleb Martin or Pritchard. Hopefully nobody. Pritchard, Caleb Martin, Neesmith, Crowder, Suggs, and Hart. One of these guys will full throttle dive at Joel's knee. I just expect this type of goofiness. Yeah, I'm not even gonna put that energy into the air.
Yeah,
Mr.
come on,
Rudy.
Rod. Come on, Rod. Come on.
I love you, but somebody was in my playback. I blocked him, and he's a guy that's been in there for a while, and I could not believe what he said yesterday. And I was like, kick him out, get him out of here. And he's like, I didn't mean it like that. Get him out of here. The fact that you would even, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't think there's a player that's diving at his knees.
Shout out to my guy Rudy, man. He's always coming in supporting, but I'll be honest, he has turned full Negadelphian this season. I mean, even in my streams, he's saying that he doesn't believe in Tyrese Maxey anymore and he can't do anything. And come on, Rudy, you got to have a little bit of hope. Let's go.
But here's the thing too, man. And I had to train myself a little bit over the past couple of years. A lot of people are in these Facebook groups, on Twitter, all day, every day. And I'm not saying you are, Mr. Roddy, but if you read the internet every day, you can now disease your own opinion with these insane negative keyboard warriors, and it just might not be reality. Like back in the day before social media, you didn't hear from these people. These people didn't have a voice. Now everybody has a voice. And sadly, there's not yet an IQ test to make a social media account. I hope one day we get there. But for now, anybody that can move their fingers is allowed to type something. And there's just There's so much negativity. It blows my mind. It really does. There's Sixers fans that hate Joel Embiid. There's Sixers fans that, yeah, they want to see Tyrese Maxey fail. It's so odd, but it's not new. It's just the fact that these people have never been heard for before social media.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do, I'm right there with you. Like, even on this post I put out a couple days ago, it was an April Fool's joke saying that the Sixers had re-signed Tobias. And, there were people on that post saying, this would be a great contract, like get him at $16 million a year. And I'm like, there's no way you think that. There's absolutely no way that you would be happy with that. So
I'm telling you, dude, it's Rudy. If you're on Facebook, get out of there. There's something out of all the social media. There's something about Facebook groups that is the most negative, insane takes I've ever seen in my life. My mom is still in the Phillies one for some reason, and she was talking about how the people wanted Bryce Harper gone after the first 2 games of this season. And I was like, you got to get out of these Facebook groups, because that's just not a thing that people with a brain say.
Yeah. No, it's wild, man.
Yeah. And for the trade Joel Embiid people, I would just like to ask, like, how did you enjoy watching the last 2 months of basketball? Because it's straight up intolerable that it was just brutal watching all that. So yeah, Facebook is kind of the dregs of a lot of those conversations, and it happens a lot. But yeah, it's a wild world we live in with how much goes on like that.
Well, Facebook's a little bit older, I think, and I think the demographics a little bit older, and I think a lot of them kind of stopped watching basketball for the most part, but they still want to have the conversation. So, it's kind of like Facebook is my uncles. My uncles are like that. Oh, but Embiid, isn't he hurt again? Oh, he's never going to do anything. They don't even, they don't watch it.
Get in the post. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Eastwood hit on it perfectly, because there's no, there's no requirement of accountability. Like on Twitter, I can make a fake page with a Joel Embiid profile picture or a Tobias Harris profile picture. And if I say something that's utterly ridiculous, who cares, right? Who's going to find me or know who I am, So like, after a bad Joel Embiid game, these guys come out, Joel Embiid hater 23, and they're like, Joel Embiid's the worst player of all time, trade him. They don't have to show up and like show who they are or what they're doing. So it's like, I agree. You gotta like block it out, and just, that's why I love these YouTube chats and shows and things like that, because this is where you get the diehards, people in the chat know what they're talking about for the most part. So it's a good community to kind of build.
Yeah, and since we've all been building our own Discords and membership groups, and you really finding the fans that are really bought in and really want to contribute to the conversation, and not just some negative, guy in the chat, random negative guy in the chat. But yeah, I think my defense of Tyrese Maxey is always still, there's always this deflection too, where people are like, well, what about Maxey? Wasn't he supposed to do this or that? And I'm like, he's not the one on the max contract yet in his prime, If he's on a max contract and he's 27, 28 years old and he's folding in the playoffs, by all means, everyone's going to be like, this guy didn't do what he was supposed to do. But you can't say that about him yet.
Mm-hmm. And the amount of stuff he has sheltered as a 23-year-old, and the experiences that he's built up already. Like, imagine in 4 years what he will have gone through already. It's not like it's his first time making the playoffs. Like, he's been thrown into the fire, man.
And another reason I have a hard time kind of holding him down against the fire is for how much he's already exceeded expectations. Like, the fact that he's a legitimate number 2 option on the Sixers team is wild in his 4th year in the NBA, or him progressing at the rate that he has, adding the 3-point shot, adding all these layers. Like, he's so far ahead in his developmental arc than we could have expected for a 23-year-old kid that was the 21st overall pick, that it's like, no, he's not perfect. Yes, he still has ways to go, but he's way more on track than anyone could have ever predicted at this point. And the work rate, the energy, the effort level, the way that he carries himself, everything just checks out to me. So I'm with it on Maxey, and we'll defend him as well.
Nick, another super chat. You said diehards. I'm a diehard Paul Reed fan. Who else agrees he should start next to Joel Embiid? We need that spacing. B-ball shooting 40% from 3. I think Paul Reed has improved in his shot, but that doesn't necessarily mean defenses respect it yet, So I don't think that really helps the spacing as of right now. Nobody's running out to the three-point line at Paul Reed, which is probably a reason that he's shooting 40% from three. If people started playing defense on him at the three-point line, maybe that percentage wouldn't be what it is. I mean, I feel like I could pull up every Paul Reed three-point attempt this season, and it's probably wide open, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't really help the spacing, I don't think.
Yeah, and spacing's weird because like it's kind of one of those give and take that, like there's players that you're more afraid of as shooters than kind of their numbers indicate that it feels like they're better than they are, and there's other guys that you're going to force to beat you. And Paul Reed is one of those that it's like, teams are going to live and die with whatever he shoots if he's on the floor in this type of situation. I will say I'm disappointed and some of it obviously due to Embiid's injury, but even dating back we didn't get to see a lot of the Paul Reed and Embiid lineups sharing the floor. I do think Paul Reed could be cut a little bit from that Aaron Gordon type mold that we're talking about, to be a guy that scraps, does the dirty work, allows Joel Embiid to be the primary scorer and guy that kind of patrols the paint. So I am with it that I would have liked to see a little more Embiid and Paul Reed, at least to just see what it looks like. But yeah, I think overall, my theme is slightly underwhelmed in kind of the developmental arc of Paul Reed, that he hasn't quite taken those next steps to be that type of option for the team. But shout out Paul Reed, man. He's been playing much better lately.
Yeah, shout out to Paul, and I'm glad that he gets to kind of slide back into his role of that backup five, and that we don't have to watch Mo Bamba, hopefully, for the rest of the season, because it was a tragic experience. But yeah, man, I think maybe there could be like certain moments where you throw Paul Reed in next to Joe, like maybe you need a big stop, or you're trying to run it out and transition a bit, but I don't know, man. The Sixers need to find, I think what Nick's talking about though is legit. Like they need to find that guy. Like Aaron Gordon. I remember I said this to you guys before. They're missing Aaron Gordon. With Aaron Gordon, this team is a championship level team in my eyes. You have all the other fitting pieces, but where's the Aaron Gordon?
And should it just be Tobias, man? Like a lot of these things we're talking about,
It's supposed to be.
That's the position. That's the role. Like that's what they need to fill.
Well, that goes all the way back to Elton Brand and Brett Brown, or whoever was in charge at the time. It could have been Josh Harris and his billionaire buddies, but nobody really looked at this team back then and said, "Let's build a team that makes sense. Let's put a rebounding athletic power forward next to Joel who can also catch and shoot the three. Let's get a point guard who will spread the floor." They did the opposite of all of that. They just, trade for this guy, trade for that guy, put a bunch of, guys that score in the paint all on the same team together. It was absolutely ridiculous. And the Nuggets strategically built that team, and Aaron Gordon was such a massive trade for them. But I think a level of basketball IQ comes along with that, knowing where to be, where to cut, when to cut, how to play off of Jokic and things like that. And I like to compare Paul Reed, I feel like, to a fullback in the NFL. You don't want him to do anything really finesse-wise. Dude, run forward, plow everybody out of the way, and the running back's going to follow you. And then he gets thrown into being the running back. We'll say that, you know what I mean? And then kind of his deficiencies start to show, and people are like, what the hell? I thought this guy was good. And it's like he's good at a certain role, and when he was forced to be the starting center, then Nurse had to figure out the Mo Bamba Paul Reed thing. But yeah, I like the fact that he gets to go back into his role off the bench, because that's just what he is. He's that guy that's going to play hard, that's going to fight for boards, but you don't want him to be out there, doing too much. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. We did see a lineup earlier in the season. I only remember seeing it one time with Joel and Paul Reed on the floor together, and I don't remember it being any good.
Yeah, it's tough given Reed's skill set. Maybe it would be a bit better now given his shooting increase, but again, like it has to be respectable, like that void has just been there. It will be there. Tobias doesn't fit that mold of that type of player that they need. And I think it is going to hurt in the playoffs. So
I do want to say, I feel like Paul Reed has improved incredibly with his footwork and his finishing, right hand, left hand, righty hooks, lefty hooks, his pivot spins and things like that. I think he's gotten a lot better offensively than we've seen the past couple of years. So I definitely want to shout him out for that, because I feel like he's really working on his game every offseason.
Definitely.
He loves the reverse. That little reverse up and under is like become a go-to for him, and he is good at it. Like he finishes at a high clip. There are times where I'm just like, just dunk it, like
dunk the ball, man.
Make it easier. But to his credit, he does put a little sauce on it, and it has done well. So I will give him a little love that he absolutely has added to his game, and I do think that matters in the grand scheme of thing. Like the contract obviously comes with expectation for all these guys. And while there was a little bit of a slow start to this year, I do think that he has added layers, got better, and brought value to this team, which is all you can ask.
And I see people in the chat saying that Kelly Oubre is our Aaron Gordon. No, he's not. He's not even close to an Aaron Gordon. Like Kelly Oubre is a amazing role player, but he's a different type of player. Like the Sixers need Aaron Gordon. They need that type of player. Take that pressure off of Joel's shoulders sometimes. And unfortunately, I don't think they have it. Maybe Rocco can come back and save the day, but I don't know, man. It's shaky.
Yeah, I think Kelly Oubre is a straight up modern day small forward. I don't think he's a power forward whatsoever. I don't think he's really known to be a rebounder or anything like that. He gets them. He's a fighter, but yeah, he's not that big body bruiser type of power forward that you would like next to Joel. Which always just makes the Tobias Harris thing make less and less sense when you really look at it.
Yeah. The thing that I will point to towards Kelly and kind of the Aaron Gordon comparisons, it is still that lob threat kind of outlet that he does provide. And I do think that's like incredibly valuable offense that's so difficult to guard. And it's one of the reasons the Nuggets are efficient as they are. Kelly is capable of that. And those baseline cuts and that kind of dunker spot niche that he carved out for himself at the beginning of the year, I do think that's all relevant. Like there were a couple putback dunks that stick in my brain from earlier in this year that's exactly what you want from him. So from like a role standpoint, I get it. He's definitely not a carbon copy as far as a player, but I also think like as far as an archetype for a career, I could see Kelly following a similar path as Aaron Gordon. That Gordon was the guy down in Orlando for a little bit and then saw that like this doesn't quite equate to winning for me getting up 20 shots a game. Kelly kind of had a similar opportunity that I think this year has been an example of him having a little bit of that realization that I'm obviously a very talented basketball player, but for me to maximize my role on a team, it might not be things running through me. And I do think he's realizing that, which is to his credit. And obviously it's been fitting on the Sixers team. So still a shout out, Kelly.
Yeah, he definitely benefits from being a high level role player with not a ton of expectations. He just gets to come in and just attack. Really, that's your role. That's what you're best at anyway. Just attack. And so when he gets to play like that, you see it. You know, he might be having. I didn't look at the numbers, but is he having a career year? You know what I mean? I think he might be having the best time he's had in his career. I think he's having a lot of fun, and I think he likes his role in the team. You know, after being in Charlotte, where really he was just chucking up shots because there was no identity whatsoever and almost not getting signed to an NBA team at all to getting this opportunity, you know, again, sign Kelly Oubre.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, Kelly even talked about Charlotte. He said, I had no desire to really play in the city. Like the fans didn't care. It felt like you're just going out there to go to work every day. Here, he's actually having fun, and you can see that. And that's why guys love to play in Philly. So,
yeah,
I think he's earned himself a pretty good payday, you know, maybe in the range of like 10 to 15 a year. He's earned it in my books. I would not hesitate.
Yeah. It's always going to be anytime lots of players come to Philly and they're like, oh, this is my favorite place to play. You know, Philly, New York, and Boston. You don't really get hardcore passionate fan bases outside of that on that level that those three cities are. Those three cities are just sports cities. And once you play in one of those three cities, I feel like everything else seems like, yeah, Charlotte. I mean, that, you know, it's like Kyle Kuzma in Washington, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Jordan Poole, you know? He's probably hanging out till like 30 minutes before the game, like, oh, I gotta go play a basketball game. He's probably not even thinking about it.
Yeah. And there's some guys that's what they're built for, that's what they prefer, that this is just a job, something they do. But if you are built for wanting the biggest moments, that like Philadelphia catches so much heat for being overcritical of players. But I think a lot of people don't give the right attention to the other side of the coin, is how much they'll defend you and be at your back when things are going well, or when you do leave it all on the floor the way that guys do. And that is the beauty of Philadelphia as a sports town. And I'm with you that New York, Philly, and Boston, maybe Chicago at times I might throw in that mix. Is kind of a good sports town. But yeah, those are the elite of the elite. And Philadelphia, like when you get it, you get it. And I think Kelly is a guy that does.
Yeah. You guys got anything else before we get out of here, man? Thank everyone for coming through. Thanks for hanging out. That we appreciate the participation in the chat. We appreciate you listening to us. Tomorrow's a big one, man. Tomorrow's another big one, and that's gonna, you know, you were right on, Sean, when you said, you know, if we lose that game, it might close the door of us getting that 6th seed, and then maybe we just accept the fact that we're probably gonna end up in a play-in game. So tomorrow, there's a lot riding on it, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and beyond tomorrow, just to kind of note that obviously tomorrow is the big one, and then it's against the Memphis Grizzlies, the San Antonio Spurs, the Detroit Pistons, the Orlando Magic, and the Brooklyn Nets. So tomorrow's a tough one, but beyond that, it's pretty smooth sailing. So they can take care of business. It is up for grabs. So I guess if you want to wrap up with a little prediction for the final 6 games, that would be cool.
Yeah, let's do that. The final 6 games. Yeah. The thing is, like, I feel like if we were in the middle of the season, they would have brought Joel back maybe last night. Then they'd probably sit him a game and see how he feels. And so I don't really know what they're gonna do. Are they gonna play him all 7 of these games and really just ramp him up and get him ready? Is there gonna be a couple of games that he doesn't play in this final 7 games?
They do have Grizzlies and Spurs is a back-to-back, so I do think that's worth noting here. So I think it's probably unlikely he plays in both of those.
Yeah, he's not playing both of those. No way.
Yeah.
And who knows?
I'm gonna go 6 games left. You said?
Yep.
5-1. They
like
finish the season out 5-1, and they end up in the 6th seed. That's my prediction.
Love it.
I'm going because I think Embiid's not going to play one of those back-to-back games, and I think tomorrow's going to be tough. So I'm going 3-3. I think they go 3-3. They finish in the 8th seed. They lose to Miami in the play-in, and they beat Atlanta. And we got Sixers Celtics first round. And we'll leave it up.
I can't even handle it, man. I cannot handle a Sixers Celtics first round series, man. I can't handle it.
I feel like it's coming, man. I really do. And I think the Sixers can give them some trouble, but I don't know. The Celtics are tough, man. I will say, though, looking at the whole standings, like there's not many teams I trust in the whole NBA right now. Keep in mind, a lot of guys are injured too, like even in the West. Like the Thunder and the Timberwolves are at the top of the West with the Nuggets. Like I don't really believe in those championship teams. So
isn't it great where we're at right now in the NBA? Because remember when every year it was LeBron versus the Warriors, and it was kind of like, what's the point of even watching the regular season? And now it's like there's so much parity and there's so much competitive nature and team. This is the first time in a while I feel like you can't point at a team and say that team's definitely getting there.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Yeah.
Besides Celtics fans, they think they are definitely getting there, but
Yeah, and as much as RB says it feels like destined for the Celtics, I kind of feel like it's destined for a Sixers-Bucks series at some point. That they have not had this kind of Giannis and Embiid clash, and you add the Doc Rivers and the Pat Bev sub-storylines to this, that it does feel like that's kind of destined to happen in my mind. I think they close this out. I'll go 4-2, and I still think they climb to that 6th seed. That I think tomorrow is obviously the big one, and that's going to be kind of make or break in my mind. But I'm pretty optimistic about the Pacers continuing to slide and that door being open. I'm feeling great about the Sixers team, and I think beyond just obviously Joel Embiid mattering from basketball perspective, I do think there's a newfound belief and emotional lift that has been brought onto this organization by his return. So I think they ride that.
So I'm looking at Miami's final games. They got the Sixers, Rockets, who have been red hot. Then they play Indiana, which is a very interesting game. Like they play each other, which could determine a lot. But then they finish off with Atlanta, Dallas, and then the Raptors twice. So, you got to hope Miami slips up a little bit.
Yeah, and tomorrow's the big one. That like if the Sixers can pull that one, there's 2 big ones. It's obviously Sixers Heat, and then the Heat Pacers are going to be huge games to watch for all this. The other thing that I'll note is the Hawks. Like I guess they do have a little bit of gap behind them in the standings, so it's not as important. But they're still a team that's kind of figuring themselves out. So I don't think that's a game to overlook either.
If the Sixers win tomorrow, I think I agree with you, Sean. I think they end up playing the Bucks, but tomorrow's a big one.
Yeah.
So, Sean, you think they're gonna, if they end up you think the Bucks are gonna fall to 3? Is what you're saying?
I either that or I do think that ultimately happens. But even if it's a second round, if they go Cavs and then Bucks in round 2, I'm totally cool with that being the case as well. And I definitely see a world where that happens.
Yeah, same. And again, Doc Rivers continuing his Doc Rivers ways and then facing the Sixers in the playoffs would just be a story of all stories, man.
I hope so, man. Also, the Pacers are down by 3 with 8 minutes to go against the Brooklyn Nets. So let's hope, man.
Hey, man. Guys, thanks for coming through. Are we live on all 3 channels right now?
Yeah.
All right, we're live on all 3 channels. If you're not a subscriber of RB or Sean, my guys, go over there and subscribe and vice versa. Come over here. Yeah, thank you guys for coming through. Love collabing with you. And yeah, tomorrow's a big one, man. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
collab again before the playoffs, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do it. All right, guys.
Peace.
Chat, hit the like button. See ya.